Chuck, can't say that.
Dan, I'm hoping they fire me. I got 6 or 7 years left on my contract.
That's Charles Barkley on national radio, openly begging ESPN to fire him over a joke he made about Cardi B at the NBA Finals. The joke blew up fast, and every NBA player who ever had beef with Barkley jumped on it. So what actually happened? To understand this whole story, you have to go back to Game 3 of the 2026 NBA Finals. New York Knicks versus San Antonio Spurs at Madison Square Garden. Cardi B was the halftime performer. The cameras caught her set, caught her courtside, caught the celebrities in the building. And at some point during the broadcast, Barkley made a joke playing on her name, suggesting the initials didn't match what he was seeing. The crew laughed, Shaq laughed, Kenny laughed. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. Cardi D started trending. Cardi B's name was trending. Both names at the same time. Cardi B even posted on X about the two of them trending together that same night. The moment didn't stay inside the broadcast. It became a full internet event in real time. People were clipping it, reposting it, and arguing about it before the game was even over. And here's the key part. At that point, nothing had happened to Barkley's job. No statement from ESPN, no suspension, no apology demanded. Just a joke, a wave of clips, and a massive online debate about whether it was harmless fun or too far for national TV. The game went on. The Spurs beat the Knicks, the series moved forward. And in any normal week, a Barkley one-liner fades by the next tip-off.
You called Cardi B Cardi D's?
Didn't look like B's to me, Dan. It looked like D's to me.
What kept this one alive, what turned a halftime joke into a real business story, was what Barkley said the very next morning. He went on the Dan Patrick Show. Patrick asked the obvious question, does anyone in management ever pull him aside and tell him he can't say things like that? And instead of apologizing, instead of walking it back, Barkley said the complete opposite of what any normal network employee would say.
Does anybody say anything to you? When's the last time management or somebody said, Chuck, can't say that?
Dan, I'm hoping they fire me.
I'm hoping they fire me. Not, I hope this blows over, not, I hope they don't. He is hoping to get fired. And then he broke down the math, because with Barkley, there is always math.
I got 6 or 7 years left on my contract that they know I got no chance of doing.
6 or 7 years left, and he has zero plans to work them. He told Dan Patrick that on the record, in front of everyone. And then he finished the thoughts.
I would love for them to fire me and have to pay me for the next 6 or 7 years.
That's the whole game right there. Get fired, go home, still get paid. For years. And he even took this idea to his own agent.
I was talking to my agent. I was like, what can I do to get fired but they have to pay me for the whole 6, 7 years?
He is literally asking his agent how to get fired. That is the level we are at. And then he said it one more time, loud and clear.
Yeah, I would love to get fired. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, but because like I say, there's zero chance I'm gonna be working the next 6, 7 years.
Zero chance. His word. He connected it straight to the money. Get fired, collect all those years of checks. And he said, grinning the whole time, that he heard through the grapevine he makes great money. Then he addressed the people upset about the joke in the most Barkley way possible. That is the full storyline. A wild joke during the finals, a viral night, and then a former MVP going on national radio and daring his network to cut him loose so he can get paid to do nothing. Now let's talk about the relationship underneath all of this, because Barkley's connection to ESPN is way stranger and way newer than most people think, and it's the biggest reason the whole Fire Me act even works. For most of his broadcasting career, Barkley was a TNT man through and through. He joined the network in 2000, right after a 16-year playing career, 11 All-Star selections, the 1993 MVP, and a spot in the Hall of Fame. With Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, and eventually Shaq, he turned Inside the NBA into something totally unique. Part analysis, part comedy, part unscripted hangout where a Hall of Famer would say absolutely anything. And Barkley was the engine of all of it. For over 2 decades, he wasn't just a TNT guy, he was stubbornly, famously not an ESPN guy. He criticized ESPN publicly. He mocked their heavy workload, calling it a car wash of extra programming. He held up TNT's looser style as the better product and made no secret about it. So what happened next was shocking. In October 2022, Barkley signed a 10-year, $210 million contract extension with TNT. That's around $21 million a year, one of the biggest analyst deals in sports media history. But the deal ran longer than TNT's actual NBA rights, and that detail would matter a lot. Even at signing, Barkley was openly saying he might not finish the contract. He talked about retiring, about not wanting to die on TV, about preferring golf and fishing instead. Then, everything changed. The NBA signed a massive new $76 billion media rights deal, and it went mainly to ESPN, ABC, and Amazon. TNT lost the NBA. For a moment, it looked like Inside the NBA was done forever. Warner Bros. Discovery even went to court over it. But a deal was made. ESPN would license Inside the NBA from TNT. Same crew, same set, same energy, just airing on ESPN and ABC now. And this is why the Fire Me story makes complete sense. Starting with the 2025-26 season, the show moved to ESPN. But Barkley and the crew are still technically TNT employees. The show still runs out of Atlanta. ESPN pays a licensing fee to air it, but ESPN doesn't directly employ Barkley like a regular staffer. Experts compared it to the Pat McAfee deal. The talent keeps editorial freedom that most network employees never get. Barkley isn't running through ESPN's corporate rules. He's a licensed star beaming into their airwaves with full TNT swagger. His reaction to the whole move was mixed from the start. He found out through media reports, not from the people involved. He called ESPN an honor and a privilege publicly, but his frustrations weren't about being overworked. They were the opposite. He wasn't being used enough.
It's been great. Dan, we've complained. We've only been on ESPN, I think, 4 times in 3 months.
4 times in 3 months. For a man whose whole identity is built on being on TV, that is painful. He kept going.
But I wish in December, we only worked 1 day in December, Dan. That was Christmas Day.
1 day in all of December. And he made it clear he wasn't blaming ESPN for it.
But I wish we had worked more so far, because it's been great. The guys at ESPN have been great.
So the situation is genuinely strange. A lifelong ESPN critic, now licensed onto ESPN's air, sitting on a contract ESPN doesn't fully control, complaining he's not being used enough while holding guaranteed money that turns "Fire Me" into a punchline with real financial teeth. The way this whole deal is built is exactly what gives Barkley the confidence that they're anyone to cut him loose. Now let's talk about the money, because Barkley isn't bluffing, and the numbers explain why nobody at ESPN is rushing to give him what he wants. The foundation, a 10-year, $210 million extension signed in 2022 with TNT and Warner Bros. Discovery. That's around $21 million a year. As of mid-2026, there are roughly 6 to 7 years left, exactly the number Barkley keeps saying out loud. And here's the part that gives his joke real bite. These big media contracts are almost always heavily guaranteed. That guarantee is the entire engine of the Fire Me routine. Think about what that means for the network. If ESPN or Warner Bros. Discovery wanted to cut him loose without a solid legal reason, they would almost certainly have to pay out the rest of the contract. We're talking somewhere between $120 million and $150 million. That's the scenario Barkley is laughing about. He gets fired, goes home, plays golf, and the checks keep coming for nearly a decade. From his side, that's not a punishment. That's a dream retirement plan. Now here's the flip side, and it's just as important. A network can sometimes fire talent for cause over serious misconduct and avoid the payout. But a cheeky joke about a Cardi B performer on a halftime-style studio show almost certainly doesn't clear that bar. Inside the NBA runs on exactly this kind of unscripted humor. Firing Barkley for cause over a Cardi B joke would be a legal stretch the network would almost certainly lose, and everyone knows it. So the only real way to remove him is the expensive way, which is exactly why he's so comfortable daring them to do it. And then layer the licensing deal on top of that, and ESPN's hands get tightened even tighter. The show is licensed, not directly staffed by ESPN, so they don't have clean authority over Barkley the way they do over regular employees. They're paying for a product, and that product's value is almost entirely the chemistry between 4 specific people. You can't fire 1/4 of the most beloved studio show in sports and expect the magic to survive. ESPN is paying premium dollars for the authenticity, and the authenticity is the same thing that produces the jokes that make executives uncomfortable. You can't buy one without the other. ESPN's real power over Barkley is limited. They control the schedule, which is exactly the lever that left him working one day in December. They can issue statements and apply internal guidelines. And eventually, they control whether to renew the licensing deal at all. Those are real tools. But none of them is firing Charles Barkley for free tomorrow, because that option basically doesn't exist. Barkley's counter leverage, on the other hand, is enormous. Guaranteed money, 63 years old, already wealthy. He's run the get fired, get paid math with his actual agent and talked about it live on radio. He creates viral moments that boost engagement, especially when they're controversial. And by explaining the contract publicly himself, he controls the whole narrative. Any move ESPN makes to discipline him instantly looks petty, wasteful, and foolish. He's turned transparency into a weapon. And the ratings back him up completely. The Inside the NBA crew's arrival has dramatically improved ESPN's NBA Finals coverage by almost every account. For over a decade, ESPN couldn't build a pre-game and halftime show people actually loved. Now they finally have one, and Barkley is the biggest star of it. When the thing you paid a fortune for is finally working, you don't blow it up over a rapper joke. The economics don't just allow ESPN to tolerate Barkley, they practically require it. Both sides know the firing isn't coming. So the money explains why ESPN won't pull the trigger. But there's another reason this story hits so hard, and it's because Barkley has spent his entire life refusing to back down from anyone. This isn't the first time he's done something like this, not even close. The fire me moment at the finals wasn't even his first fire me moment of 2026. Months earlier, on that same Dan Patrick show where he complained about his light schedule, Patrick had pushed him on something else. The fact that Barkley kept openly insulting ESPN commentators, calling them punks, idiots, fools, and jackasses on the air. Patrick asked how that was going over at the network, and Barkley's answer was a preview of everything that was coming.
Well, they can fire me. Hey, Dan, I got 7 years left on my contract.
Same day, same contract reference. Months before Cardi B ever stepped on that stage. Then Patrick reminded him he'd announced his retirement, and Barkley's answer laid out his whole philosophy.
I am. So, listen, Dan, I'm 100% retired.
100% retired while still appearing on national television. That contradiction is the whole joke of his career right now. And then he finished the exact same thought he'd repeat months later.
If I can do something just a little bit stupid, so they have to fire me, they'll have to pay me for the whole 7 years.
Word for word, the same scheme. So when people acted shocked by the Cardi B moment, the truth is Barkley had been running this exact bit all season long. It's not a slip. It's a recurring, financially calculated routine. But the fire me talk is really just a broadcasting version of something that's defined Barkley his entire life. A total refusal to back down from anyone ever. This is a man whose confrontations are practically a museum exhibit of NBA history. Go back to April 19th, 1990. Philadelphia 76ers versus the Detroit Pistons Bad Boys. With the game winding down and Isaiah Thomas already ejected, Barkley and Pistons center Bill Laimbeer started shoving and throwing punches, sparking a full bench-clearing brawl. Both got tossed. Suspensions and fines across players and teams totaled well over $160,000. And Barkley, in the middle of all that chaos, still put up around 36 points and 15 rebounds. That was the era. He stood up to enforcers when most forwards would have stepped back. Then there's Charles Oakley, maybe the most sustained beef of Barkley's entire career, a years-long saga of hard fouls, trash talk, and off-court drama. A 1994 incident where Barkley slapped Oakley after a hard foul, a 1996 preseason fight that got both men suspended, even an alleged slap during a lockout-era players' meeting. These two went at each other across dozens of games, with Barkley usually winning the statistical battle and both men trading shots that have become legend. Then there was Karl Malone, his great power forward rival out west, with brutal, physical, trash-talking playoff wars. Most memorably, the 1997 Western Conference Finals, where Malone's Jazz came out on top after a savage series. And the confrontations never stopped when his playing days ended. They just moved to the studio. His relationship with Shaq is the clearest example. Real friendship mixed with on-air comedy theater and genuine competitive friction. They were actually ejected from a game together in 1999 after Shaq blocked him, shoved him, and Barkley fired the ball straight back at him. On the show, the feud is mostly entertaining theater that boosts ratings, but it comes from real competitive fire. And there's a more recent entry in the confrontation file too, his on-air clash with Draymond Green, who jabbed at Barkley's Houston Rockets years during a guest appearance, prompting Barkley's icy response that he doesn't punch down. Green later walked it back publicly, framing it as respect, but the exchange reignited the whole debate about Barkley's barbs toward modern players. And now, what actually happened? Because here's where we have to be honest about what this story is and what it isn't. The truth is more interesting than the headline. Let's talk about the real reactions first, because there were plenty. The internet exploded. The Dan Patrick clip racked up massive view counts. Fans flooded X with affectionate, classic Chuck takes, jokes about ESPN being trapped paying him no matter what, and waves of memes built around the "Fire Me" line. The reception leaned heavily positive among his core audience. People loved the transparency. They loved that a 63-year-old multi-millionaire went on national radio and explained, on the record, his scheme to get paid for not working. Media coverage matched that energy. Outlets across the sports world treated it as another delightful Chuck being Chuck episode, not a scandal. The framing was mostly amused. Writers laid out the financial logic and concluded it was bold, funny, and in a strange way, relatable. One widely read piece from Awful Announcing summed it up bluntly. Barkley isn't getting fired, probably won't even retire before the contract ends, and as long as ESPN keeps letting him make these jokes, he's not going anywhere. It wasn't unanimous though. The original joke drew real criticism. Plenty of viewers found it inappropriate, outdated, or sexist, arguing that a national broadcaster making personal remarks about a performer's body while she's on a major stage crosses a line. Some called the follow-up dare tone-deaf. So the reaction was genuinely split between "this is hilarious and untouchable" and "this was inappropriate," with laughter clearly outweighing the outrage. Cardi B herself seemed largely unbothered, leaning into the trending moment rather than fighting it. There were a few notable individual voices too. Dan Patrick gave Barkley a friendly, playful platform to stretch the bit out for several minutes without cutting him off. The Inside the NBA crew's on-air laughter during the original joke told you everything about how that show actually operates. Nobody recoiled, nobody cleaned it up. And the broader industry conversation touched on talent power dynamics, how a star with guaranteed money and proven ratings becomes nearly impossible to discipline. More than a few writers use this as a case study in why long-term guaranteed contracts hand so much power to the people who hold them. It's also worth noting that Barkley wasn't the passive subject in all of this. He was the one generating the sound bites. He was explaining his own scheme. He was delivering the punchlines. When the main figure of a story is also its funniest narrator, their reactions feed on themselves. Each new Barkley line gave the internet something to clip, each clip gave the media something to write about, and around it went. But here's where we have to be straight about what the headline actually promised, and what really happened. Promise 1 was the word "fired," and the simple truth is, Charles Barkley was not fired by ESPN. Not even close. He made a joke, he went on the radio, he dared them to cut him. But as of this story, no firing, no suspension, no discipline, no executive statement. He's begging for a pink slip because he's confident he'll never get one. And ESPN's silence has proven him completely right. Every report lands in the same place. Firing him would be the most expensive mistake ESPN could possibly make. Promise 2 was NBA legends react. And when you actually go looking for a parade of Hall of Famers publicly responding to Barkley's situation, that organized chorus isn't really what drove this story. The reactions came overwhelmingly from fans, from media, from social media, and most of all from Barkley himself, who has been his own loudest commentator the whole time. Shaq and Kenny laughing on air is the closest thing to legends reacting. But the image the title might suggest, icons lining up to comment on Barkley getting axed, isn't what happened, because the axing itself never happened. You can't have legends reacting to a firing that doesn't exist. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.